right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and John Iadarola with you guys. John's, of course, the host of Damage Report. That's, of course, at 1 o'clock Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. So now, guys, big show ahead for you guys tonight. Do we have a power panel in the second hour with Keith Edwards? We do. Okay, so that'll be fun. Do we have massive news today? Yes. I've solved Iran. What's going to happen there, not what we can do to win. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But way more importantly, guys, kidding aside, we might attack Cuba as early as this weekend. Not joking, not exaggerating. Donald Trump is a lunatic, total lunatic. So between all those stories, I kind of have a sense of what's going on inside Trump's mind a little bit more clearly, God help me, than I did before in this term. So let's dive in and let's try to figure out how many countries can we attack at once with our anti-war president. Okay, all right, so John, dig it away.
Probably a lot, considering that in that one funding that will never be limited in any way whatsoever. So that's a fun thing about our country. Okay, let's focus now on the war that we're already in, not the one that we're about to start. Let's jump into this. This morning, Donald Trump announced that the war in Iran will not end until Iran declares like full and total and complete surrender, or maybe not. He started to get super loosey-goosey about it afterward, but we're gonna show you the initial True Social message he put out, which ends with MAGA, or make Iran great again, or that's what we're supposed to assume it means. The I might stand for a different thing. I think that makes sense based on what he's been doing recently. But anyway, Cenk, does this sound like what he's been campaigning on the past decade?
Oh no, it doesn't. The I is for Ireland, right?
It's probably
Iceland. Iceland
might be.
Okay, we'll see.
He gets that mixed up with Greenland, though. So.
Yeah, he does. All right, guys. So there's a couple of super important things here. So if he's looking for unilateral surrender, what does that actually mean, right? Does it mean ground troops or not? That'll be absolutely pivotal. And then based on that, what I want to explain to you guys is how this thing's gonna pan out for the rest of this conflict, depending on that choice that Trump makes. And it will determine how the rest of the Trump administration plays out. I'm not exaggerating. I think we're at a pivotal turning point here. So John, tell them the facts and then we'll discuss.
I'm very excited to find out now. I want to see that. So I have something to look forward to. Let's jump into the initial message and then how the messaging has changed throughout the course of the day. He put this out. There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that and the selection of a great and acceptable leader, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction. I don't know how they ended up on the brink of destruction. Probably it didn't have anything to do with Trump, I'm sure. Making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Iran will have a great future. Make Iran great again, MAGA. Thank you for your attention to this matter, blah, 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 blah. So a couple of interesting things there. First of all, unconditional surrender. Then selection of a great and acceptable leader. Remember, he told Axios earlier this week, he is going to choose their leader. Okay, that's what acceptable means. It means he accepts it. So if you have this idea or hope that this ends with the great people of Iran choosing their own leader, democracy, return to Iran, he's telling you that's not going to happen. Just like in Venezuela and probably in Cuba next week, he chooses the leader and it's going to be one of the class of strong men, economically aligned proto-dictators that he's made friends with all over the globe. That's what he's telling you right now. And also, you'll notice that message doesn't say anything about human rights, anything about democracy. It says it's gonna be great again. How? Economic strength. That's what this is about. It's about deals, it's about resource extraction, it's Venezuela all over again. But on that unconditional surrender note, he changed his tune a little bit later today saying, unconditional surrender could be that the Iranians announce it, but it could also be when they can't fight any longer because they don't have anyone or anything to fight with. So but surrender, you declare surrender. It's not just like I look at you and I say, yeah, you've surrendered. You surrendered, come on. That's not what that is. But let's see, Carolyn Levitt often has to pick up the pieces from his gobbledygook. Let's see what she says about this.
What the president means is that when he, as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, determines that Iran no longer poses a threat to the United States of America and the goals of Operation Epic Fury has been fully realized, then Iran will essentially be in a place of unconditional surrender. Whether they say it themselves or not, frankly, they don't have a lot of people to say that for them, because the United States and the state of Israel have completely wiped out more than 50 leaders of the former terrorist regime.
Yeah, exactly. Unconditional surrender because we've assassinated all of their top leadership. I mean, they didn't say it quite that way, but that's how our wars operate now. Yeah, so when they're no longer a threat to us, which they weren't, they already weren't, that was a lie. So I feel like we could just wrap this thing up right now. And when the goals are accomplished, well, then we can wrap this up right now because you have not made clear what the goals are. It could be anything you want. Could you please just declare victory right now? You can save us a lot of money. But anyway, we're gonna get to more of what Donald Trump had to say about the conflict and how little he is even pretending to care about the people that will die in this war. But Jenko, wanted to give you a chance to jump in.
Yeah, so there's actually a bunch of smart Republicans, that I did say that phrase, who are now saying, get out, we won, la da da da. We're gonna cover it a little bit later in the program. Laura Ingraham, Greg Gutfeld, Senator John Kennedy. I think that they're saying that so they could, because they want him to leave, like enough. We're all going to be politically slaughtered here if you put in ground troops. So now let's back up and figure out how the hell did we got here and what the next step is, because how we got here is critical to what the next step is.
Okay.
So first of all, did Donald Trump change his stance from anti-war to pro-war, America first to, I don't know, would start a giant war in the Middle East and Venezuela and bomb 8 other countries? Indisputably he did. The only people still left disputing it are Israel first, but they like literally everything they say is a lie, so that's irrelevant. But like big portions of his base are still sticking with him and going, no, these aren't wars. Wars are only when you put in ground troops. So like we could bomb the hell out of every nation on earth, but as long as we don't put in ground troops, it doesn't count. So that's their last justification, right? Because otherwise it's super obvious that he flipped 100%, right? Okay, so then why did he flip? So we assumed that he didn't really flip. We've called him a con man all along. He is a con man. He's been a fake populist all along. He's never meant anything he said. That's why I voted against him 3 times, even though I kind of hated his 3 opponents, right? And even then it was clear choice because Trump is a maniac and he doesn't mean a single thing that he says, and he's a con man, right? So unfortunately, I was right about his opponents. I was also right about Trump, I think. So let's find out, right? So how did they get him to switch from his ostensible position? Well, I thought, well, look, he's gotten a tremendous amount of money from Israel, of course. That's why he's been serving them all along. Well, you've heard me say it many times, $337 million from the Adels's, just one family, let alone the rest of the Israeli lobby, that'll do it. Except then Qatar and a bunch of the other Arab countries were like, oh, here's a $2 billion deal, here's a $400 million plane. So we kind of got to neutral on the bribery. So, and I was thinking, and I even said at one point here, look, the great thing, the one silver lining here is that with Trump, he always screws over his creditors. So like he could win the presidency and go, hey Miriam, thanks a lot for all that money, sucker, right? And I would love that. This would be the one instance that I would love that if Trump did it. So I held up some hope that he would do that. But since he didn't do that, then we started to wonder, is there something else, right? Is it maybe blackmail, right? And so like in legitimate news circles, you can't say that. And could it have come from Epstein? You can't say that. I just said it. I don't care what you think. It's super obvious that there's something else influencing Trump. Now though, John, in an interesting turn of events, if you made me bet, I'd still put it on blackmail. Okay, but now a little less so, okay? Why? Because now having read all of the accounts from different insiders about how they chose to go into this attack, it does seem like they kind of hoodwinked him into it. I mean, it's half a dozen, 6 in the other, right?
You're talking about Netanyahu?
No, yeah, Netanyahu, but more importantly, his own advisors inside the White House. So all of his advisors actually work for Israel, right? So Marco Rubio has gotten $5 million from Larry Ellison, and Larry Ellison told the Israeli ambassador he's pre-approved for Israel. I mean, that's how brazen it is, right? And Hegseth wrote a book about how the IDF should be in American streets. what? Okay, like these guys all work for Israel. It's insane. It's insane, right? So they surrounded it both internally in America, and then Netanyahu has come over, and this is what they explain in the internal accounts, and gives him speeches. Gave a 3-hour speech the last time he came over near the end of February, and he gives him these speeches about like the centrifuges are spinning faster, Donald, and they're closer to the nukes than ever. Now you say, like, if you're a normal human being, you go, hey, you've been saying that for the last 30 years. I just knocked out the nuclear facilities. There's the door, idiot, right? But Trump is so dumb that, like, because one of the things I thought is, well, if they blackmailed him, why bother putting on a dog and pony show, right? So that's why I made, like, blackmail went down a little bit based on those accounts as in probability. It's still significant, but so then, and then they started describing what they told Donald Trump. They said, now, Donald, you don't want to be this is a quote, spectator to history, do you? So he's like, oh no, I want to lead. I want to be the one doing the bombing. Oh, he's such an idiot. So this is what they told him the last time around too, in the 12-day war when they first attacked Iran. They're like, well, we're gonna go in first, and then you'll look like you're weak and just a follower and not a leader.
Yeah.
And Trump's like, no, I want to be the leader. He's so dumb.
So instead he followed.
Yeah, of course, that's the great irony. And then look, I'll speed up because there's a lot of details. But so they said, and then the final part of it was Israel said, look, we're going with or without you. So a lot more Americans are gonna die if you don't come first, and you'll look weak, and you'll look ineffectual, and you'll look like you're just following along and a spectator and all these things. Or now this is the second half. You could be the guy who changed the whole world. Now, this is what's affecting the lunatic story we're gonna cover a little bit later in the show of him potentially attacking Cuba this weekend, not joking, okay? His advisors have convinced him that he is a historic figure, that he could attack all of these countries at the same time and thereby end wars. But you see, like if you're a normal person, you're like, wait, I'm gonna start a giant endless war all across the world in like 3 different theaters, and that's gonna be anti-war. There's the door, please leave, you idiots, right? But he goes, oh yeah, a war to end all wars, and then I'm the hero who's like the greatest historic figure of all time, the bomb away, right? So now, finally, we get to the point where you guys get to decide for yourselves based on what Trump does going forward. So you don't have to trust me, you can see it with your own eyes, right? And then you come back and see if the analysis was correct or not, right? So now we're at the point where they convinced him in the beginning, don't worry, you could do a long distance regime change in Venezuela. I'm sorry, in Iran like you did in Venezuela. And it's obvious to me now.
Even though Venezuela has the same regime.
Yeah.
It's the vice president,
yeah.
but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and so it's now clear to me that they convinced him of that. Because he keeps saying to the Iranians, like he did to the Venezuelans, but with the Venezuelans, apparently we had a secret deal all along with the rest of the regime. But here we don't have a secret deal. And in fact, Trump said, hey, when we killed Ayatollah, there was 2 or 3 guys in there that we could have had a deal with, but we killed them too accidentally.
Whoops.
Oops, right? So now we definitely don't have a deal. The guy they picked to replace Khamenei is Khamenei, his son. So they've dug in, and now there's giant like street protests, etc., against us and in favor of the regime. They're furious about the 165 girls killed, let alone over 1,100 killed overall, right? So they've rallied around the flag. Since they're dug in, there is no chance of long distance regime change.
Yeah.
But Trump's still screaming it into the abyss. Oh, unilateral surrender. Did that do it, huh? Hey, Pete, is the IDF in the streets yet?
Am I tough?
Hey, Marco, did I do well? I yelled at him and I said unilateral surrender. They're like, meanwhile, the Iranian foreign minister, we showed it to you the other day. He's like, they asked him, what if they send in ground troops? Huh? One of our anchors, an American anchor, and he's like, we welcome them. Why? Because it's so much easier to kill you if you come and stand right next to us. And Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. There's mountainous areas like Afghanistan. They're like, please come. It's so hard to fight you in the air and in the water. But if you make the mistake of coming onto our land, we're gonna guerrilla warfare the living hell out of you. It's gonna be Vietnam times 10. It's gonna be Afghanistan. It's gonna be Iraq. So they're like, please come, please get on the land.
Yeah.
So now here's the part where you guys will see for yourself. If he has an awakening and goes, oh, what the hell, man? They didn't surrender. I thought the Israelis said they were gonna surrender. Marco, Pete, you said they were gonna surrender, but they didn't surrender. They're dug in. And now we're running out of missiles that are interceptors on our ships. Now they're gonna be vulnerable. We gotta get the ships out of there, right? So hey, listen, we knocked out the Ayatollah and 49 other guys. We just decimated their ballistic missiles for the last 4 or 5 weeks, whenever he makes this decision, right? And we definitely destroyed the hell out of their nuclear program. So hey, mission accomplished. And that's why some of those smart Republicans are now saying, hey, remember, Donnie, mission accomplished. Let's get out of here, right? If he makes the decision to get out of here, then things will be bad, but recoverable for the country, kind of, right? But for now back to politics, for his voting base, he'll definitely be able to recover. Because he'll be able to say, no, I didn't do any ground troops. None of those were wars. No, they were just bombings, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Now we won't agree and we'll think that's silly, but his base will largely agree. And he'll be able to salvage himself because he needs that base to ward off everything else, right?
Yeah, I agree.
He hides behind that base. If he puts in the ground troops, everything devolves. The war devolves, our country devolves, his base devolves, and by the end, he will be universally loathed. And you're saying, oh, Jen, come on, no, I know MAGA and they're a cult and they'll never break. And still to this day, a huge portion of MAGA is with Trump. First of all, 63% of Trump's voters, of Trump's voters that don't call themselves MAGA, which is a big number actually, already he's down to 63% approval on the war. And he's lost over a third of them already, okay? So now you say, hey, well, that's a tip. I don't know if there's a tip of an iceberg or just a tip, right? So my thesis is, if he puts in ground troops, that's the tip of an iceberg. And his support is gonna crater, right? So let's see who's right.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I would love nothing more than for the entire world to agree that he is the worst president we've ever had and we all hate his goddamn guts. That would be great. I don't want to lose 10,000, 50,000 US troops to get there and $100, $200, $300 billion. But
yeah, you know what would
apparently it's just up to him. He can just do whatever he wants.
You know what would be even better, John, is if he makes the decision to not put in ground troops.
Yeah, that would be great.
So I would much rather deal with the political, oh, well, Cenk, you were wrong and he didn't put in the ground troops and none of these things were wars. Great.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll take it and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I got it wrong, right? But my guess is when Israel wants something, Israel gets it.
Jokes aside, you'll never say that, but I agree with your hypothesis.
No, when I'm wrong, I say it.
I'm kidding. Let's jump on to the next part of this though, because there are a couple more angles we definitely want to get to. Donald Trump has had to deal with the fact that already US service members have died in this war. Many civilians have died in a number of countries in the region. And a lot of people are worried that this could lead to not only more attacks on Americans in the region, but potentially attacks on Americans here. I mean, the idea that Iran had ICBMs that could reach America was a lie. They knew that when they said that, but you could potentially inspire some sort of terrorist attack. Should we be concerned about that? So he's asked that and he says, I guess, but I think they're worried about that all the time. We think about it all the time. We plan for it, but yeah, we expect some things. Like I said, some people will die. When you go to war, some people will die. It's reassuring from the president.
Yeah.
That many have already died and more will die. And he's like, yeah, whatever. It's madness to me that a president who's already wildly unpopular, that's his approach to American dead.
Yeah, I mean, if Biden or Obama had been that like flippant about American deaths. Yeah, some people die. Yeah, I did a war. Obviously, people are gonna die. So what?
Imagine if that was Biden's response to the little bit of the chaoses we're pulling out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think 4 people died there. It might be mistaken.
I remember 11, but regardless,
okay,
I'm sure Biden was solemn AF, and yet they still talked about it in Fox News for literally years.
Yeah. So, but if you talk about these 6 American dead, they're like, how dare you? That's normal.
Yeah.
You're supposed to die for Israel. It's normal.
Stop being biased, Caitlin Collins. Get off my back about it. That's how they've actually approached it. But it actually gets kind of even worse because again, remember, This is not just fun and games, okay? People have already died, and the White House is memeing through it because they're very cool. Hello, fellow young people, we've got memes. So we can't actually play the videos because for some reason in the topsy-turvy world we live in, copyright law has higher standards for YouTube channels than it does for the White House. So we're just gonna have to show you images, I guess. Here's a GTA. And then, the wasted there, like, they have in GTA.
Can I just pause there for a second?
Yeah.
Because remember, we started this war, this is how it started and how it's going, right? Started with, we care so much about the Iranian people. Those poor protesters.
So much, it's for them.
It's for them. I mean, we don't want war. And Israel doesn't want regime change and a puppet put into place. It's for the Iranian people. Now, it's wasted. We wasted them. We murdered them, including the little girls. Wait, which one is it?
Yeah, and then images from a bunch of movies, Braveheart and Breaking Bad. And then Kylo Ren, all the heroes of their stories, I believe. And then, we blew up a ship. Of course, it was an unarmed ship and it was coming back from a training exercise, but let's pretend it's badass. And then at the end of the video, they play a throwback sound effect, which is from Mortal Kombat. It's flawless victory, which is funny because they're good at memes. Of course, they did murder more than 150 girls in a double tap strike on a school. It feels like the victory had a couple of flaws, maybe. Doesn't seem super pro-life to be celebrating about it. Like, that's why I use the term fasturbation. That's what they're doing here. It's just glorifying the use of military to kill people that we don't care about because they're not humans. It's so fun. And then we can like pretend that we care about democracy there. And then we just love killing them and we love blowing them up. It's the best. And so that's what they've got. If we die, some of you might die. If they die, it's so amazing. And that is how our military is approaching this. But it is a serious endeavor, and it's also seriously expensive, by the way. We know that as of right now, the estimates put it at between 1 and 2, probably closer to $2 billion every day for this war. So again, no money for SNAP, no money for Medicaid, no money for pipelines, no money for infrastructure. Your bridges are collapsing, can't afford health insurance, no subsidies for the ACA. $2 billion a day to kill Iranian schoolgirls. And already Senate Republicans are considering putting together a request for potentially, let's see, $50 billion. And Mike Johnson doesn't know the exact number, but he says he'll pass a bill when it's appropriate and we get it right. And I know that I've done this job for a long time, but sometimes I still feel like a little bit naive and a little bit ignorant, because it seems to me as a regular person that when you spend $1 trillion on your military each year, that should cover wars. Like, if it doesn't cover wars, what exactly were we paying for with the $1 trillion? So we bought all these weapons, but not like to use them. Like that doesn't pay for using the boats, that doesn't pay for flying the planes, it's just for the planes to sit there, $1 trillion. And so $50 billion, and that'll cover us for maybe a month and a half. And then of course we need to restock the weapons. That could be expensive, especially if we need them rushed and everything. So it's just endless money out the door. But if AOC gets elected in 2028 and she starts talking about a Green New Deal, education funding, the news is gonna be covered with discussions of how are we gonna afford it, Cenk?
How are we gonna pay for that? But $2 billion a day, no problem. Anything for Israel. Now guys, think about it. We already give them $4 billion a year. Biden gave him 21 billion in the middle of genocide. Then Trump gave him 13 billion more. And that sounds like a lot. And we've given them well over $300 billion lifetime, right? Ton of money. But we spent 8 trillion on the wars. The global war on terror was the global war on Israel's enemies. And so now, on top of the 34 billion extra we gave them in the middle of the genocide, now we're gonna give another 50 billion for this war, because that has no American interest. We're fighting it strictly for Israel, like zero American interest. They have no nukes, no nuclear facilities. Their missiles can't reach us, and we already just killed their regime. So there's like nothing for us, purely for Israel. But you can't ask the question. If it's, to John's point, if it's for Americans, you have to ask, you have to give us chart after chart after chart on how you're gonna pay for it. Give me the plans. The plans aren't good enough. It's gonna cost a nickel more. That's a cut from the poors, cut from the middle class, right? Israel wants a war. Don't. If anybody asks a question, they're anti-Semitic. And now the new thing is America hater. If you don't want endless war, you hate America, right? So that's their new talking point. Now, okay, let's turn to, and how about the guys who are gonna die? When you say, we talked about how they don't care about the Iranian civilians that are dying, that's obvious, right? But they also don't care about our guys. You know who doesn't die in any of our wars? Rich people.
Yeah.
None of them sign up for the military. It's all poor and middle class. So none of the elites' kids are in the military. So they think cost free.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost any real person their lives, only the average American.
Yeah. Which
they have no respect for at all. So then you go to Laura Ingraham, which is kind of interesting. Now, in a twist here, she objected to the double tap on the school. Because normally, John's right. They're like, yeah, so what? We killed those little Iranian girls. Ha ha, they had it coming. In fact, guys, if you think I'm exaggerating, earlier in the week, I was in a debate on Piers Morgan, and Matt Schlapp, one of the right wingers, when we were talking about those dead girls, he said, they would have grown up in a burqa anyway. Like, oh my God. I mean, they have no bottom to that barrel. So I think what Laura Ingraham is doing by objecting to it is doing two things. One, I'll give her credit, right? Like, we've got to draw the line on the Israelification of America, because Israel bombs schools and hospitals over and over and over again, and they think killing civilians is no big deal. They have the worst civilian kill ratio in the world, worse than Hamas, worse than any terrorist group. They do double taps. The Voice of Hinrajab is an amazing movie. It's about that 6-year-old girl, and you hear her real voice throughout the entire movie. And what the Israelis did was they knew, they 100% definitive, there was a girl that was alive, there was a 6-year-old in that car, and they had gotten double permission for an ambulance to go pick her up. And the Israelis waited for the ambulance and killed everyone inside the ambulance and then murdered the 6-year-old girl. So if we become that's fascism. We full blown, not headed towards fascism.
We killed the girls, man.
Yeah.
Has Hegseth apologized? Is Hegseth facing tough questions from Congress about the management of this war? Is he at risk of losing his job?
No, none of those things. But Laura Ingraham, again, I'm giving her way too much credit. It's just one tweet. But to me, the reason why I care about it is not to give her credit, but is a harbinger of things to come. So number one, she's drawing the line a little bit and going, we shouldn't become that, right? There's a lot of people now finally that are not hypocritical in the pro-life movement. And some of those voices are rising up and going, wait, we said we're in favor of protecting lives and kids, and so now we can't be in favor of this, right? Yeah. And Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene have been actually pivotal in that. But the second thing is, I think Laura Ingraham, in all the things that we've covered already just on this show, is trying to go, get out, get out, get out. Stop doing this, enough, we can declare victory now. But if you keep going and we keep slaughtering innocent kids and you bring in ground troops, you're gonna destroy not just yourself, but the entire Republican Party.
Yeah. You wanna go to that Laura Ingraham video, is that what you're saying?
No, I think we're out of time.
Unfortunately, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, but definitely something to look into, and I'm glad that some in the media are at least daring to do that. Okay, we're gonna take a short break, lots more to get to after this.
Me like war, it makes me rock hard. Me like war, it makes me rock hard.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to YouTube members first. I found Thone says, yay, John and Jen. Kathy says, the Doge and tariff checks can't come any sooner. It's funny, Kathy. You know what, we both left. $100 Blue Apron gift card, rewards at tyt.com. That's what you gotta email, Kathy, since you're a member. Rewards at tyt.com. Only members get it. Kevin Shea says, like things are not expensive enough. Now gas prices are shooting up too. I am so tired of winning. That's also funny. Nice job, Kevin. The Raging Atheist said, my husband is first generation Cuban American. He's baffled by what big Trump supporters his family is and wondering if this will change their perspective. Well, right now, Cuban Americans will be like, oh my God, we'll finally go to war with Cuba again, right? So that's my guess. That's usually how the expat community reacts. If that war goes south and their family members start dying, then maybe they'll have a different opinion. That's also usually how it goes. But we'll see, Let's hope it doesn't happen, but we're gonna give you an update on that in a minute. Rusty Jones says, unconditional surrender contradicts the Israeli ambassador to the US, who told the BBC they are looking for regime collapse. So yeah, look, the Israelis want regime change, period. That's the whole point of this war. They were never concerned about the nukes. That's been a lie the entire time. There were no nukes. As usual, fake weapons of mass destruction nonsense. They were worried about the ballistic missiles. That's their goddamn problem, but they made it our problem. But overall, they just want regime change. They love puppet leaders. That's what Israel loves, and that's what they're going for. So now let's go to our members on tyt.com. Spider-Man Dragon says, make Israel great again. I fixed it for you, Trump. Instead of Iran. Kelly K says, Trump and his cabinet claiming they need to save the Iranians from their crazy theocrats. Yet Trump daily has religious zealots coming in to pray over him in the White House. The jokes write themselves, but instead of being funny, it is our sick reality. That is also true, Kelly. I've seen some of those lunatics like shaking and convulsing, and I don't know what the hell they're doing. And at the end of all that, like, I laid hands on you. Work for Israel.
The convulsing might be from the smell.
Yeah. So all those pastors are getting paid and getting free trips to Israel, etc. They're disgusting. They're selling out not just their flock, but their own religion for money. They're just the worst of the worst. Spider-Man Dragon says, by the way, those Epstein files are still waiting for you, Trump. In fact, we have a story about that coming up. Ian Globus says, I need to get a Trump head with an I did that speech bubble sticker so I could put them all over the place on various items. All the terrible things he's done, I presume. Yep. Police the White House says, I'm afraid we're about to be a dictatorship and they're going to bring back the draft. Of course, if it happens, I have a 13-year-old son and an 8-month-old son. Iran could easily run 30 years, especially if we switch to a dictatorship with an active draft. This couldn't put us in an endless state of war. No, don't worry. It's not. It would be shocking if it lasted that long, and we're not going to tolerate it.
This is such a, I think that this is like extremely political.
All right, back on TYT. So a couple of announcements. First of all, Jank John, CDN Norse Dog Dad, thank you for gifting a membership as usual. Okay, a couple of big announcements. First, let me do the Noble Mobile thing and then I'll do the announcement. So you guys know they're our sponsor and they're awesome. I'm on them and I pay around $30 every month. So if you're paying over 50, you're wasting your money. Please do it now rather than later. Save more money as you go. tyt.com/switch. If you don't use your data, that's why we do those ads with Go Touch Grass. Andrew Yang, if you touch grass, he gives you money. It's kind of literal. So he's not gonna watch you touch the grass. It's not.
He's not watching you right now.
Yeah, but he will give you money literally if you don't use your data. So tyt.com/switch. Okay. Fun announcement for you guys. Next Friday, part of our power panel will have two interesting people on it. One is Nina Turner, campaign co-chair for Bernie Sanders. So, populist left. The other person on the panel will be Marjorie Taylor Greene, right here on the Young Turks. And so we're gonna do me, Nina Turner, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm gonna let them, believe it or not, do most of the talking. And I wanna see how does populist left and populist right get along. And my guess is on some of the issues we'll agree, some of the issues they probably won't agree. And it'll be interesting either way. So that's next Friday right here on the Young Turks. The show's Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. So check
Be nice to me.
Well, we're gonna find out.
Will Nina be nice to her?
We'll find out. All right, John, what's next?
Okay, shame I won't be there. Anyway, let's move from the wars we're currently fighting to the wars we might soon be fighting, starting with this.
We've been having some conversations. Some people who can't appear on camera, but I can, and I can tell you what they've told us. I can tell you that America's going to change forever. Trump says that Cuba will be ours, and that will happen like maybe this weekend. Actually, it's remarkable.
So if you were under the impression that perhaps Donald Trump's bloodlust would be sated by Venezuela and Iran, and that would be it, he'd go back to being the president of peace or whatever, evidently not, because that is right-wing commentator Benny Johnson saying that he's apparently been talking to somebody at the Pentagon. He's now claiming that a US operation to eliminate the Cuban regime, do regime change followed by nation building there, could come as early as this weekend. Now, I don't know if Benny Johnson was supposed to leak that information. Maybe the Pentagon wrongly assumed that he would keep the entire thing on the down low, but he is now speaking out. What do you think, Cenk?
First of all, it's amazing. So the Democrats ignore online media entirely. They don't think that it even exists. They're not aware of it. The Republicans are like, are you a random vlogger somewhere or an influencer? Let us tell you our secret battle plans. Okay, anyways, but I'm glad to know it. And guys, the most important part here is, oh my God, I think we're actually going to attack Cuba. That is mental, mental. That's not the only piece of evidence. John, give him more.
Yeah, and it begs the question, like definitionally, how many wars do you have to be in at the same time for it to count as a world war? Well, let's think about that as we go to this next stop, because you don't necessarily have to rely on Benny Johnson, and you shouldn't, because he's a lying grifter, or even his sources in the Pentagon who might or might not exist and might or might not know what they're talking about. Donald Trump has been very clear that he wants to attack Cuba. It's basically been a matter of when rather than if. And here's an example, an interview with CNN's Dana Bash.
He quickly turned to Cuba. He said, without being asked, Cuba is going to fall pretty soon, by the way, but Cuba is going to fall. They want to make a deal so badly. And I asked, how so? He said, they want to make a deal, so I'm going to put Marco over there and we'll see how that works. But we're really focused on this one now, meaning Iran. We've got plenty of time on Cuba.
Yeah, when Donald Trump says they want to make a deal, I no longer have any understanding of what that is supposed to mean. It's I guess, a deal for what the fate of their country is. And again, to be clear, if you thought, oh, finally Cubans will be free to choose their own leader. Nope. Marco Rubio is going to be installed as the viceroy of Cuba or whatever. There is no democracy anywhere, not even feeling like it's here anymore either. And he had an interview with Politico yesterday where he said Cuba's going to fall, we cut off all oil, all money, or we cut off everything coming in from Venezuela, which was their sole source, and they want to make a deal. And like not just a deal necessarily, the full complete conquest of Cuba seems to be what he's indicating, as you'll see here.
The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us. And maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the votes?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble.
So weird. But anyway, sources inside the White House have said that Trump seems to think, well, Venezuela was easy, I guess, easy in that they replaced Maduro, just let his vice president take over. Now they've cut like an oil deal or whatever. Screw the Venezuelans. They again don't get democracy. And one administration official said the president is feeling like I'm on a roll, like this is working. And then, well, The Atlantic has an expose from Vivian Salama. I'm not gonna read all the quotes because it largely gets into what, Cenk, you've been talking about how he has been convinced by people in the administration that he alone can remake the map. And there is no downside to interventions everywhere simultaneously. And he just needs to do it. And somehow that comes like into his mind or out of his mouth as MAGA rather than just, this just feels like the Bush doctrine. This just feels like this neoconservatism. That's literally all it is. They're doing massive interventions all over the globe to set up positive economic deals that benefit the Epstein class here and maybe some elites in that country. I don't understand what the difference is between this and the Bush doctrine.
No, it's actually much worse. So let me be clear about a couple things. So first, just to add to the extra evidence that we're actually gonna go to Cuba, Lindsey Graham can't help himself. He gets so excited when he gets briefed about war, and he came screaming out of a briefing, Cuba's next! next, Cuba's next, right? And I don't know what else he did to, anyway, I don't want to think about it. So now in terms of the Bush doctrine, what do Trump has already attacked 8 countries, 8. He's already done more airstrikes in the first year, and that was in 2025, right? Well, I'm not even counting the war in 26, et cetera, than Biden did in all 4 years, and they called Biden a warmonger.
Yeah.
They called him a warmonger, and they've done more strikes in 1 year than he did in 4.
And they said Harris would bring World War III, that she would launch wars.
Yeah, and here they are launching wars in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba. They just did a joint military operation in Ecuador. Because why not attack all countries at once? They've done bombings in Nigeria and Yemen. We can go on and on, right? So these guys are nuts. So now back to Cuba. Okay. Oh, so one last thing on the Bush doctrine. So Bush was like, okay, hey, we're gonna do the Iraq war and Afghanistan, and that was a disaster. But even Bush kept it contained to one area. Like what our military has been worried about and has strategized around for as long as I've been alive is a 2-front war, or two war in 2 different theaters, I should say, okay? And so, hey, can we handle something in Latin America and the Middle East at the same time? Here, these guys are actively going into a thing that we have been worried about our whole lives voluntarily.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, hey, it broke out in China and it broke out in Latin America. We don't have a choice. We're gonna have to fight on 2 different fronts, right? No, they're like, let's create for no reason this type of thing. All right, now guys, Cuba is super weak. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I think, oh, if you go into Cuba, they somehow have some amazing military capabilities and they're gonna shoot down everything. No, right? So, but I'm a gambler and I know the odds of something going wrong, okay? And the odds are, if you take enough risk, it is absolutely inevitable, okay? It approaches 100%. So does that mean that we're gonna get involved in a quagmire in Cuba? Probably not, but I don't know, are we gonna go on the ground? That's mental. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't like these regimes. If somehow we magically convince the Cubans through sanctions or blockades or whatever we did, and whatever was bad, but now they go, you guys are right, we're just going to democracy. You don't have to attack us, and we're gonna change our own regime, we're gonna go to democracy instead. Oh, I would love that. Great, wonderful. I would, but usually the world is not magical, right? So what happened in Venezuela was slightly magical. That was actually a rare piece of intelligence work where we convinced the people under Maduro to work with us if we took out Maduro. So now he thinks that's normal. I'm not sure I've ever seen that happen before, right? What happens normally is something goes wrong. And then you get into a little bit of fighting, and then you get into a lot more fighting. And next thing you know, you got troops on the ground in Iran and in Cuba, and all of a sudden Venezuela attacks. And then wait a minute, China goes to take Taiwan, and the whole thing devolves, right? So far Trump in his life has been the luckiest person, maybe in the history of the world, at least that I've ever seen. He does things wrong time and time and time again. He does a couple of things right, no question. That's how he got to be president. He's great at grabbing the spotlight, and in politics, that makes all the difference, right? So, but on everything else, he's a clown. So now, my experience is, and we'll see how it plays out, that if you take this many risks, at some point, one of them catches up with you, and then another one, and then another one, and it devolves dramatically. So right now things are already bad, but they have not devolved dramatically. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the next level, when something goes deeply wrong because we took way too many risks. And attacking Cuba would certainly be the most gratuitous, needless risk of all time. Especially in the middle of a war with Iran.
Yeah, and I think a related sort of possibility is things go wrong all the time around Trump. He just doesn't necessarily, he's not necessarily the person who pays the consequences for it. Like his COVID response went wrong. He's still alive. Hundreds of thousands of Americans aren't. He wrecks the economy. He's richer than he's ever been. Lots of people lost literally everything and are doing really badly right now. So it's possible that taking Cuba will be relatively easy, but it also, as you says, emboldens China to invade territories. It emboldens Putin to invade another country. And that could go really badly for people whose last name, regrettably, isn't Trump.
Yeah, and by the way, the Russians and the Chinese are loving this because especially the Russians, they're like, oh, you made us deplete our entire military in the Ukraine and you thought that was cute. All right, great. We can't wait for you to deplete all of your resources and your military in Iran. And now maybe Cuba and Venezuela. All right. I mean, they couldn't have asked for a bigger gift than this.
Yeah. Okay, we do have to take our second break. When we come back, we're gonna turn now to the economy. I hinted at it earlier. We're gonna jump into what's going on after this.
So on Twitch, Mad Matty Dragon writes, and Cenk, thank you for interviewing the candidates for Dick Durbin's seat last night. Thanks for appreciating that. You know, we do these things and we hope that it's helpful to you guys. So we had a congresswoman and the lieutenant governor on back-to-back, and they're the two leading candidates. And likely one of them will be the next senator from Illinois. So that's kind of cool. So I'm glad you watched it and enjoyed it. Now you guys get to decide. Okay. So now let's go to YouTube members. I'm not sure if I read this one or not. William King says, my favorite news fellas, Cenk and John, love you both. Make me laugh in the midst of a world war. Thanks, guys. We try, brother. Dragonline says, what the hell happened to JD? The VP is remarkably quiet. Is he hiding behind his couch? Okay.
Tulsi Gabbard also.
Yo, they're very anti-war.
Disappeared.
And they're whispering anti-war in the hallways. Later, they'll tell us in campaign commercials.
Yeah.
We whispered it. I mean, God, did we whisper it in the hallways. Kraken Engineer says, I'm starting to think this whole FIFA Peace Prize didn't even matter to Trump. Okay, another really funny one. You know what? I'm going crazy today. Kraken Engineer.
What?
$100 Blue Apron gift card. If you're a member, you email, and you are, because you're in the YouTube member section, rewards@tyt.com, and you grab that, rewards@tyt.com. Mattman63 says, hey John, great Friday damage report today. Glad Brett's back.
Me too, I missed him.
Yeah, all of us. And Bijan Baihai says, love me Cenk and John show. Thank you, brother. Timmy Dees writes in on Super Chat, Iran fought ISIS and Al-Qaeda fiercely in Iraq and Syria. Jake Sullivan told Hillary Clinton in 2012, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. The nerve of the Trump regime to call Iranians the jihadists. Yeah, no, Iran fights against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They get smeared as Muslims. And all of American media is like, duh, we can't tell the difference. Israel told us you should hate all Muslims. Okay, Free Meatballs and Linguini says, I guess, okay, don't laugh too much, brother makes sense. He says, I guess we know where they're going to spend the extra $500 billion in the Pentagon budget. You're exactly right, Free Meatballs and Linguini. I thought the same exact thing. As soon as they started the Iran war, I'm like, that's why they asked for the extra $500 billion, because they knew they were gonna start all these wars, right? Charles Pelletier says, I was flying directly over Iran when the war hit on Saturday. We flew to safety in Afghanistan, back in Dubai, then stuck there for almost a week. Man, brother, you dodged a lot of bullets there. You're as lucky as Trump. Anyway, super happy you're safe. Brian Thoreau, thank you for the donation. Rose Orozco says, I love you, Cenk and John and Anna. Thank you for all you do, but we love you back. We'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Jake and John with you guys, and Kristen Eckert as well. She just joined by hitting that beautiful join button below. John.
Okay, let's take a look at what's going on with the economy.
Secretary, 92,000 jobs out in February. Fewer jobs in healthcare, fewer jobs for information services because of AI. The weather hurt things, government employment down. If you add it all up, it doesn't look good for the Trump economy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you. I think we have to address the fact that this is not a good report in its raw numbers, but we have to also talk about why this possibly has happened, this snapshot in time. It was mentioned, the weather.
Yeah, it was probably the weather that did it. We've never had bad weather in a February before here in America. And now, look, she went on to explain other stuff, some strikes and stuff like that. And okay, those are excuses. And maybe, by the way, they might be persuasive ones. Maybe they placate people that the economy losing 92,000 jobs in the month of February is okay. But the bigger issue is that this keeps happening. If you look at this chart of job growth going back to basically the beginning of the Biden administration. By the way, can you guess when Trump was inaugurated on that particular chart? Roughly every other month, the economy loses jobs, which means that on the months where we gain jobs, it's basically net zero, but not the type that leftists have been asking for. And not only did we lose the 92,000 jobs in February, but they also revised some previous months, subtracting 69,000 more jobs too. So overall, regardless of the weather, this is not good economic news.
Yeah, it has begun, guys. So the AI apocalypse has begun. So we're at the very, very beginning of it, the first jobs report where it's beginning to show up. So you saw Jack Dorsey's company fired 40% of their staff, 4,000 people gone. And I've now seen a number of different reports, Amazon beginning to fire people. Coders are getting fired in big numbers. AI can easily do the entry-level coding jobs, now the mid-level coding jobs. So it's only going to get worse. It's going to pick up steam. And as it continues to happen, all these people will tell you, oh no, it was the weather, the dog ate our jobs, all these excuses. No, and part of the reason they don't want to talk about the AI apocalypse is because the stock market loves the AI companies.
Yeah.
So and everyone in the government is invested into AI and Silicon Valley, et cetera. So they're all like, what do you mean? Nvidia's up, the Dow's at 50,000. It isn't anymore, by the way. But for the rest of us, like an economic slaughterhouse is about to begin. Those are strong words, right? But you're gonna see terrible times are ahead. And now normally I don't say that, and I'm saying that now. It's gonna get bad.
Yeah, it should really be inspiring some platforms going into 2028 dealing with this. And you're right, none of them want to admit that the stock market's built on a house of cards, that these job losses are coming. And that's the downside for AI. But the upside is, think about all that AI can do. Like you said, coding, Grok produces some high quality child sexual abuse material, I suppose. So it can do a few different things. But anyway, yeah, I think we should lose our economy. Our future should fall apart so that we can produce really high quality videos of Will Smith eating spaghetti. I don't know. But anyway, that's what our economy is. Now, overall job numbers are bad. Let's jump into what's being affected right now by Donald Trump's foreign policy. That would be oil. Oil has surged 35% this week, for the biggest gain in futures trading history, dating back to 1983. That is a big jump, and it could get even worse. Qatar's energy minister told the Financial Times that Gulf exporters would halt production in days if tankers cannot pass the Strait of Hormuz. This could spike oil prices to $150 a barrel in the coming weeks and bring down the economies of the world. Now, we're not there yet, but already the rising oil prices are having an effect on gasoline. I don't entirely understand exactly why, considering that one would have to imagine the gasoline that's at your local gas station, that oil or gas was bought before this, but for some reason they jack up the price anyway. But regardless, prices are going up. Gas prices The oil prices have topped $90 for the first time in years. And then you can see in the chart down below, the yellow line of when the fighting in Iran began is kind of right there at the bottom of the spike in oil prices, but the spike is there. And so Donald Trump has been lying for a full year about the price of gas, continually saying that it's $1.99 when it has never been so, but it did go down at least a little bit over the last year. That's gone. We're now higher than we were when Donald Trump was inaugurated. And like with the inflation caused by the tariffs, this is not an act of God. Donald Trump caused this because of his stupid choices. Gas prices have gone up 9 to 11% depending on your state on average in just the last couple of days. And so that's potentially a big issue. We know that people are super sensitive to the price of gas. That's like the big thing people say will affect midterms. So he's gonna have to be very careful and sensitive about the way he talks about this issue. Here is how he's been talking to reporters about it.
I asked about rising gas prices, and he said, that's all right. It'll be short term. It'll go way down very quickly. And I said, well, they're pretty high now. And he said, no, they're not. They're up a little bit, not much, but it'll drop to record lows. And so I asked, well, does this mean that you're going to figure out the Strait of Hormuz soon? Again, something you were just talking about. He said, quote, it's already figured out. We've knocked their Navy because, you know, when you knock out the Navy, they can't do what they wanted to be able to do. The Navy is almost, he said, we just hit the 25 mark. Can you imagine that? Big ones. 25 ships are down. We're doing very well.
And I am pretty sure that that is a word for word accounting of what he said. So yeah, whatever, it'll be temporary. And that wasn't just like an off the cuff thing, but he's gotten his messaging under control. His messaging about this sucks over and over again. He was asked about higher prices at the pump, and he said, I don't have any concern about it. And please, Democrats, tell me you're gonna put that in ads. They'll drop very rapidly when this is over, and if they rise, they rise. But this is far more important than having gasoline prices go up a little bit. Yeah, don't even worry about it, stop whining. And so that's the president. Nobody expects him to have message discipline, but weirdly enough, this now seems to be spreading to other Republicans. And I want to give you just a little bit of Representative Mark Alford and what he had to say about gas prices rising.
I think we all know that when you have a kinetic conflict like this, whether you want to call it a war or not, we are putting energy, resources, money into this. It is going to take a little bit of sacrifice on the part of Americans.
Yeah, sacrifice. That makes sense. That's the sort of thing that politicians do talk about. But I have a couple of questions about that. So why exactly should we sacrifice for it? I mean, we don't support this war, and we made that very clear before you launched it. America didn't elect a president that was saying we'd get into this war. In fact, he said the exact opposite. We have no interest in this war, and it hasn't been even vaguely described what it is that we stand to gain in exchange for our sacrifice. And why exactly is it us doing the sacrificing? I mean, Donald Trump wants the war, and Benjamin Netanyahu wants the war. How about they do a little bit of sacrificing? Does anybody think that Donald Trump is losing a buck over this? Seems strange. Maybe he could, like, I don't know, cut into your ballroom funding a little bit if you want to pay for this war that you want so bad. And I'll throw to you, Cenk, but it's likely to get even worse, even in the short term, because Kuwait is now cutting its oil production because of fallout from Iran. Their reasoning, they say, is that they're running out of storage space for oil because they can't ship it out because of the danger to the oil tankers, and so they need to cut it, and they might have to ramp that up even more of cutting it down. And when they cut it down, they can't just spool it up again in a day. That's not how it works, and so this could get really bad.
Yeah, so a couple of things to add to that. First, yesterday we showed you Financial Times reporting that the Gulf countries are now saying, we're done with overseas investments. We got to spend our money to take care of our own defense, and America we thought was going to protect us, but it looks like we're not getting much protection. Most of the protection in the defense is, of course, you're never going to guess which country it's going to.
Ireland?
Oh, that's so close. Scotland. No,
I love
of course
Scotland.
Of course it's all going to Israel. So they're irate. So now they're not going to be investing into our country anymore, among other things that are consequences of this war. And then right now, gas prices are 13 cents higher than when Biden was in office. Trump told us when Biden was in office, the gas prices are the worst we've ever seen, disgustingly high, it's the worst. well, it's 13 cents higher now. It's like, it's not a big deal. It's only a tiny raise. It's no big deal. Just suck it up, okay, America? Who cares? Israel's got to have its war. So now, guys, in terms of the economy, the AI situation is not his fault. AI scenario would have happened to any president. That is an inevitable course of history that's happening right now. On the other hand, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a president who was preparing for it and who was going to be ready when it hits? It doesn't seem like Trump is even 1% aware that AI is going to cost us an enormous amount of jobs. I've never heard him talk about it once. I've never heard anybody in his administration talk about it. And let me guess, once it hits, they'll say, we're working on a concepts of a plan. No, you need to be making a plan now. We're gonna go to at least 10% unemployment. I would be thrilled if it was just 10% unemployment. And we haven't had 10% unemployment in my lifetime. This is going to be epic disaster, and they're not 1% ready, okay? Yeah.
So really, I kind of think that they like it. I think they love the idea that millions of young men might be out of work, and then they'll be sitting at home and they'll be consuming online content and being radicalized and angry about their economic future. And what do those men tend to turn into when propagandized to by the right?
Maybe I know, but what are they
happy
gonna,
soldiers?
Yeah, but even if that's true, what are they gonna inherit? A hollowed out country in decline? Like,
no, this isn't for the men. This is for the elites that want to have that. I would also say, I do think they're preparing for it at least a little bit, because they have been repeatedly trying to pass laws stopping states from regulating AI.
Yeah, there's another way that this could go. Millions of angry young men with no hope for the future can decide that their politicians were full of crap and sold them out, and then be super angry at those politicians.
Yeah.
That's the other way it could go. But hey, keep playing with fire and see how it turns out.
Yeah.
Okay, so lastly, the gas prices are 100% on him. Normally gas prices fluctuate, are not on a president, Republican or Democrat. You've heard us say that many times, right? But unless you're Bush or Trump and you start a giant war in the Middle East, which is guaranteed to raise gas prices.
Yeah.
So that one's on you, brother, and there's no disputing that. Finally, to your point earlier, John, one of our viewers on Super Chat, user error 5, wrote in, we need to go back to the days when the king needed to personally lead the army or at least send their kids to fight. If they have something to lose, they'd never start this garbage.
Yeah.
But of course, since we don't have that, Bush, Cheney, Trump, etc. They're like, yeah, bomb away.
Yeah.
And send in the poors, send in middle class Americans to die for me in Israel and the oil companies and the defense contractors. None of our kids will go, but you're fodder for our war machine. Yeah, this is not gonna end well, both in terms of politics in this country, because there's going to be rage, and definitely in terms of the economy.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of time. All right, guys, when we come back, we got a power panel for you guys, Jordan Ewell and Keith Edwards. And we have some amazing stories in the second half of the show as well. Now, Republicans talking about maybe punishing Kristi Noem. So that's a turn of events I didn't expect. And guess who was in the Epstein files with a really terrible story with a girl who was about 14 years old? Yeah. Donald Trump. And that's been re-released in a really weird way. So we'll talk about that when we come back too. Right back. There's one reason why healthcare is so messed up in this country, and that's because of our money in politics situation. Because those industries that are deeply corrupt can just simply purchase all of Congress. And then the problem never gets fixed because of that bribery. Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's greed, and it's the greed of politicians, right? I mean, so everything they do is dictated by the donors and the money. I mean, I shouldn't say that, not everything. A lot of what they do is, and I do think that there are people who do things in spite of the fact that they have to raise money and often don't get that money and often don't win because they don't, but are in there fighting for ideals that they believe in. Bernie Sanders is certainly an example of someone like that.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
You want to know the 3 shows that I'm watching lately? Shogun, Anjin-san. Those guys are badasses. Then you go to the Duttons, Yellowstone. Now they don't always do it right, but they are badasses. But the 3rd show has the biggest badasses of all, the Young Turks. Live every weekend. Sick that I was so good. God damn it. Okay, live. Weekdays at 6 o'clock Eastern. That's what I meant. Anjin-san.
How do you know if you're a populist? Easy. Do you work for the donor class? You don't? Great, you're a populist. Okay, so the establishment takes money from the donors and serves the donors. Mainstream media takes money from advertisers, and they are giant corporations themselves, and they work for themselves, and they work for the powerful. If you care about the average person, and you want the average person to have better health care, better wages, a better life, and you hate corruption, congrats, you're a populist.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it, and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Drop it. All right, power panel. Cenk Uygur, Jordan Uhl, and Keith Edwards is back. Good to have you back, brother.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
happy to be here.
Keith has got a great YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking that out. Does a terrific show on there. Guys, next Friday, a slightly different power panel. It'll be me, Nina Turner, co-chair of Bernie's campaigns, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So interesting things afoot here, okay? So we will have populist left and populist right and see how that goes. So we'll find out. Okay, And I want to, of course, as usual here, before we get started, thank Julie Waken for joining. They hit that big, beautiful join button beneath the video. You can do it at tyt.com/join as well. And Storm Herald 13 also joined and wrote in a comment, someone explain to me how ExxonMobil got access to the largest oil resources on earth in Venezuela, and yet we have gas prices spiking. Yeah, that's what happens when you start a giant war in the Middle East. All right. Now, Jordan, what do you got for us?
Well, after facing immense backlash stemming from claims the DOJ was purposely trying to withhold some of the Epstein files to protect Donald Trump, the DOJ has now released the interview with the woman accusing Trump of sexually assaulting her when she was a child. Cenk, we'll get into the details in a second, but first, your 2 cents.
I'm a little puzzled by this, guys, because these are terrible allegations, but we covered them before. I guess there's more details now. We'll share the horrific details with you in a second. But why did this come out now? That's super weird. We'll talk about that too. First, Jordan, give us the facts.
Sure. To bring you up to speed a bit, the allegation was public knowledge thanks to internal FBI documents and a slideshow that was made public in the initial Epstein file dump that showed prominent names listed in the Epstein files. You could see here, stated Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump, who subsequently forced her head down to his exposed penis, which she subsequently bit. In response, Trump punched her in the head and kicked her out. This incident was said to have happened in the 1980s when the accuser was between 13 and 15 years old. The agents interviewed the alleged victim 4 times in 2019 and had written summaries of each conversation. However, NPR's report says only the FBI's first interview with the Trump accuser, in which she makes no allegations of wrongdoing against the president, was part of the DOJ's massive records release made public last month. According to the New York Times, initially officials said the missing files were, quote, duplicates that had been released elsewhere, but that wasn't true. So now let's get into what the additional 3 interviews, which took place in August and October of 2019, revealed. In the second interview, the woman described additional abuse by Epstein and several of his male associates. She said that Epstein drove her and or flew her to either New York or New Jersey sometime when she was between 13 and 15 years old. And she was taken to a very tall building. It was there that she said Epstein introduced her to Trump. Trump asked everyone to leave the room where they met and mentioned something to the effect of, let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be. According to the description of the woman's comments in the interview, he then unzipped his pants and put her head down to his penis. The woman told agents that she bit Trump, who then struck her and said words to the effect of, get this little blank the hell out of here. In the woman's third FBI interview about 3 weeks later, agents wrote that she described receiving threatening telephone calls that she said she believed had to do with Epstein or Trump, as well as several incidents where she was almost run off the road by other cars. Up until this point, her attorney had been present during the interviews. However, during the fourth and final one, she was uncomfortable with being recorded and questioned the point of coming forward with these allegations. It's unclear what became of the FBI's investigation into the woman's claims. An email sent between FBI agents last summer and included in the DOJ file notes that one identified victim claimed abuse by Trump, but ultimately refused to cooperate, although it doesn't specify if it's the same person as the accuser. The claims this woman made matched those of Jane Doe 4, who had sued the Epstein estate but dropped her lawsuit in December of 2021 after receiving a financial settlement. She did not name Trump in the lawsuit, only stating Epstein brought her to gatherings in New York with prominent wealthy men. Trump has consistently denied wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. In a statement Thursday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt described the claims from the FBI interviews as, quote, completely baseless accusations backed by zero credible evidence. She also questioned the credibility of the accuser, whose name is redacted in the files, pointing to her criminal record. According to the Miami Herald, she was arrested for theft in the past, but the charges were dropped. There's more to this. We'll get into some of the timing and the other details, but Keith, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of this new document dump, and how do you think people should see this?
Well, it's very clear that there's something going on here. Our government is covering something up at the moment. And I would like to know why the Department of Justice isn't further investigating this. I know that Caroline Leavitt wants to say that these are baseless accusations, but I'm telling you right now, the FBI does not interview someone 4 separate times if they feel like there's no there. Now, I don't know whether or not Donald Trump did what this accuser said. Now, there's a lot of smoke. We don't know if there's any fire, but a competent DOJ, a competent FBI would investigate this regardless of who the president is. And I want to say one final thing is that it's really interesting to me that Hillary Clinton is being interviewed by Congress. Bill Clinton is being interviewed by Congress. Howard Lutnick is going to be interviewed by Congress. But Donald Trump, who's mentioned, I think 30,000 times, 70,000 times, a lot more times than Hillary Clinton, has not had one interview with Congress.
Yeah, so guys, when the files first came out, I said there's like order of credibility, right? So when you have emails of Epstein and his friends, those are the most credible because those are clearly emails, things they wrote. So if they admitted to things in the emails, that has a ton of credibility, right? So the second was known accusers. So if they wrote something contemporaneously at the time, we go, oh, okay, well that has a good amount of credibility. That's a person we know was a victim. And that's what they wrote at the time about how they got victimized. And there's some haunting stories in there. So then there's a third bucket, which is what this one was in, which is some rando called into the FBI and said this happened, okay? That's less credible, right? So it hasn't been vetted, et cetera. That's the category we thought this one was in. That's why it actually, when we first heard about it without as many details, we had it in the camp of, nah, I'm not sure we ever said this one on the air. I don't think we did because we thought it wasn't credible enough. But now in this new release, wait, they interviewed her 4 times? If it's a crank calling in like, oh yeah, dude, I knew Trump and he did this, they're not gonna go through 4 interviews, right? So that's interesting. And then Jane Doe number 4 got a settlement. You don't usually give a settlement to someone who wasn't a victim. So, and she matches Jane Doe number 4. Wait a minute, this is getting more and more credible as we go, right? Significantly more credible. So now a lot more people are talking about it. But I do wonder, why did the DOJ of all things and of all times release this now? Did they check with the White House before releasing this? I can't imagine that they did. Because there's no way Trump would say, oh yeah, go ahead. Put that out about me, how a 13 or 14-year-old and this and that and all the things that Jordan just told you. So wait, did somebody at the DOJ release like incredibly damning things about Trump as Trump is trying to make a decision on some things like maybe ground troops or no ground troops in Iran? I don't know. It's just like, I know that it sounds like too conspiratorial to connect it to anything else, but it is an incredibly strange time to release this damning information about Donald Trump. Yeah. What do you think, Jordan?
I think the other angle here is Pam Bondi, and the files that were released yesterday is progress, but all of the files should have been released. And according to Thomas Massey, there's still work to be done.
Not getting the answers we need from Pam Bondi, and she might be happy to offload this to somebody else as well, because I just spent 3 hours at the DOJ this week looking on the computers at the unredacted files, and I'm finding evidence of files that they haven't released yet, and I'm going to be over there and keep digging on that. But we got them to release 3 million files. There's still a lot more they need to get out.
It's so shocking to me when they keep telling us they're all out. Todd Blanche came out, Pam Bondi came, and they're not. Just like, don't lie to me. Like, I don't like being lied to. That's why Republicans are probably going to lose the House.
Pam Bondi will still have to answer for her missteps, it seems. On Wednesday, the House Oversight Committee voted to subpoena Bondi for testimony on the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files 24-19. 5 Republicans broke with their party and voted with Democrats, including Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, Lauren Boebert, Michael Cloud, and Scott Perry. In a statement to X, Mace wrote, We are moving to subpoena U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. AG Bondi claims the DOJ has released all of the Epstein files. The record is clear, they have not. The Epstein case is one of the greatest cover-ups in American history. His global sex trafficking network is larger than what is being revealed. 3 million documents have been released, and we still don't have the full truth. Videos are missing, audio is missing, logs are missing. There are millions more documents out there. We want to know why the DOJ is more focused on shielding the powerful than delivering justice. The American people deserve answers. Victims deserve justice. Hold the line. According to Mace, the subpoena will be for a closed-door testimony with video being released to the public afterwards. There is no date set for when the testimony will occur. But personally, Jack, to your question, I think that's why they did it. They released these on the heels of that subpoena.
Yeah, so I hear you. I'm curious what Keith thinks too. And others have, like one of our members on TYT.com, Mr. In Between, wrote, they released these because even the Republicans in Congress were supporting using a subpoena to get them. So guys, I totally get that. At the same time, there's like a million files in there. So they found the most damaging to Trump and released it now. Maybe, by the way, the other explanation could be it'll get lost in the sauce. We're in the middle of a war with Iran. We might invade Cuba this weekend. Sneak that out there in the middle of a Friday, and hope that it gets buried. So what do you think, Keith?
I mean, most of these have been on Friday dump. So I do think that's part of it. I think they're not, I mean, these are not very savvy people, but they're smart. They're doing the smart thing. They're releasing this crazy crap on a Friday. We're still talking about it, but you're right. Like, there are a lot of different crises happening in our country that I think they're trying to just say, all right, sweep it under the rug. I do think that the subpoena is powerful, and I think that's one of the reasons why Pam Bondi has decided that she's going to at least try to follow the law. I think Kristi Noem kind of getting the axe too is a little bit of a wake-up call to this administration and to the people in it, that they're not all powerful, that there is accountability. And one way or another, the law is gonna catch up to them, and I think Pam Bondi's maybe seeing a little bit of the light on that.
They never see the light, so that can't be it.
It has to be, the law.
So look, another one of our members, and we like doing the show with you guys, tyt.com/join to be part of the Young Turks, be a member, be part of the show. And so let me read one more from tyt.com members. Police at White House says, I remember when we first found out about Epstein being a massive child sex trafficker, we were told that there were a ton of video evidence. Why don't we ever hear about the videos anymore? So that's such a great point, and we covered the videos last week too, and asking the same question as you, and we showed you a ton of evidence of why they exist. The New York Times has pictures of the video cameras in the hallways, in the rooms. We know that there's emails that Epstein wrote, hey, I'm gonna buy more video cameras, put them in the Kleenex tissue boxes. There was video cameras found in the clocks. And yet our government says, oh no, we could not find any of the videos. So where are the videos? So if you think this stuff is damning, whether they wanted to bury it or highlight it today, wait till you get a load of the videos. And look guys, so in terms of blackmail, I made kind of an allusion to it before, and people get really touchy about that topic, like, oh my God, blackmail sounds so conspiratorial. Guys, intelligence agencies use the tactic of blackmail all the time. Not some of the time, not rarely, not like, oh my God, it's a new novel crazy conspiracy. In fact, Israel told Clinton back in 1998, as reported by the Israeli press, we have the tapes of you with Monica Lewinsky, so release Jonathan Pollard, okay? So that happened. And that was in the middle of the negotiations, by the way, with the Palestinians. So I don't know what else the Israelis got. So they knew about Monica Lewinsky before we did, before anyone did, and they already used it to blackmail one of our presidents. So where's the videos? And who has them? And who's going to release them at convenient times or hold them for leverage? Are these fair questions? Obviously, there's definitely videos, and the videos were there for a purpose. There's only one purpose for taping powerful men having illegal sex. It's not complicated. So there's a lot more to find out here, but so far what we already know
for a lot of these guys and for Donald Trump is disastrous. On the other hand, there's been absolutely no consequences.
Can I just add one thing before we go to break? So we talk about like why the timing, right? Of course, it's in the middle of not just a new war in the Middle East, but also on the verge of what is likely to be another regime change operation in Cuba. So you have two massive foreign policy distractions. And yes, there is some reporting and coverage of these document dumps, but they're hoping you won't notice those because, let's be real, most people don't read print. Some people will tune into cable news or network news, which is largely focused on these foreign policy conflicts right now. But also, this all goes back to the monopoly the right is creating within our media and social media. We're seeing a wave of suppression on TikTok this week as the Ellisons purportedly are reconfiguring the algorithm to specifically suppress Epstein-related videos. I've seen multiple trusted accounts of people have like millions of followers suddenly have their view counts reduced to a couple dozen, and some were even suspended. So the suppression is very real. It happens across social media. So it's not just that they dump it out there and then they're worried about people finding it. It's that there are other parts of this with their hands on the levers of power, making sure you can't even spread it.
And I just want to add real quick, the government that is insisting on suppressing the Epstein files is the Kenyan government and the government of Tajikistan. Oh no, right, it's weird. Israeli supporters are insisting that the Epstein files be suppressed. I wonder why. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Cenk Uyghur has the morality of a cockroach.
Oh, what a big man you are. Let me buy you a pack of gum. I'll show you how to chew it.
So let's go to our members on TOT.com for comments. Guam will capsize dragon, writes it about the Cuban invasion. What in God's name is a friendly takeover? That sounds like consensual rape. So it's harsh, but dark humor, yes. So I'm gonna leave it right there, okay? But that, if they really invade Cuba this weekend, it'll just, that goes to 11. Okay, I mean, that's a Spinal Tap moment. All right, so Kelly K writes, in Trump and his cabinet claiming they have to save the Iranians from their crazy theocrats, yet Trump has, I already read that one, sorry. Mo Larry Cheese says, I'm pretty sure after Cuba, California will be next. Jesus, what a moron. Right. No, you know what it'll be? That's a good one though, I see you. He'll be like, I got it. This is easy, this is going great. Next country we're gonna invade, Puerto Rico. Wait till we take it over for America. Sir, this is kind of awkward, but anyway. So Jumpin' Jank Flash says, remember when Kamala Harris was gonna start World War III if she won? Right. Meow's clause the established meowed, right? Saying, at this point, Trump is so malfunctioned, he could be convinced to invade McDonald land. If Mayor McCheese can't stop the Hamburglar, we'll take them both out. That's also funny. Solidarity Works says, I'm inaugurating my official bad news ice cream injection Friday. Okay, all right, that's a good tradition. I like it. Good work. Boomer Dragon Cat says, you know who's rubbing their hands together? Wait, you're not allowed to say that. China, okay. Okay, Russia depleted, the US depleted. Who comes out on top? You're absolutely right, Kat. China comes out on top. And she also wrote in, sorry, I read that one. Nerd Ferguson says 92,001 jobs that have been lost if you add Kristi Noem. Good point. Okay, I like it. ZZ Mugen asked now, and now probably with their last name as well. They said John, but now you guys can correct me. Please tell Cenk how to say NVIDIA.
NVIDIA?
NVIDIA.
I thought it was NVIDIA.
I thought it was NVIDIA, but it's NVIDIA.
NVIDIA? That doesn't make sense.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense either, but okay. But nevertheless, I'm sure you're right. So thank you. We love being corrected if we're wrong. We don't like being corrected when we're right. Anyway, but you were right on that one, we think. Rebel Dragon says, love it when there's an in-house power panel, woohoo, I couldn't agree more. Conservative Wambulance says, man, I really like TYT. And I agree with a lot of what you say, but you guys act over and over like Democrats would use dumb things Trump does that really hurt taxpayers against them in ads. I'm however convinced that they don't care if they win or lose, they're paid to lose. I'm absolutely convinced these days they never fight for us. And right now they're barely fighting on this war, so I hear you. And you know what, the guy who said that they'd use it in the ads was John. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Jordan, and Keith with you guys. All right, Jordan, what's next?
In a mostly party line vote, the House rejected Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna's war powers resolution on Iran yesterday. There were only 2 defections on the right before Democrats joined Republicans to vote this down. We'll tell you who those 4 Democrats were and the repercussions and fallout from this vote. But Cenk, before we get into it, can you guess what all 4 of those Democrats had in common?
There's no way that all 4, you mean all 4 got donations from Israel? No way, no way. I mean, what were the odds? Well, we'll find out, But guys, overall, we've got a huge problem in this country, which is that Congress will not hold the president accountable and will not follow the Constitution. So if this keeps happening, which it is, it seems like it happens endlessly, we'll have forever wars. Oh, right, we're in the middle of forever wars and nothing's ever changed. All right, tell us how it went disastrously, Jordan.
Yeah. So a day after the Senate rejected a similar measure, the House voted 212 to 219 to defeat the Massie-Khanna resolution to bring Donald Trump's illegal war with Iran to a halt. On the Senate side, Rand Paul joined with Democrats and John Fetterman unsurprisingly joined with Republicans. That vote ended up 47 to 53. But in the House, the 4 Democratic defections actually did affect the outcome. And here are their names and how much money they've taken from the pro-Israel lobby and their mega donors. Juan Vargas, $949,000. Greg Landsman, $1.7 million. Henry Cuellar, $3.3 million. And Jared Golden, $3.4 million. After the vote, Ro Khanna tweeted, strong Democratic vote opposing the illegal war in Iran on my and Massey's WPR. Hakeem Jeffries showed leadership whipping, and we had 208 Democrats out of 212, including Representative Josh Gottheimer, who cast a hard and principled vote with us. The Republicans own this Middle East regime change war. And while it was a stronger showing by Democrats relative to past votes on war powers resolutions, it's easy for them to take an anti-war stance when they're in the opposition party. But others pointed out there were just enough defections to kill the vote. Kyle Blomquist, a congressional candidate in Michigan, tweeted, for those keeping score at home, if the 4 Dem defectors had voted yes, the resolution would have been passed 216 to 215, restricting Trump's illegal and catastrophic war with Iran. I mean, we see this rotating villain theory over and over and over again, and there's always just enough Democrats who are willing to join with the other side to push forward some terrible idea or to allow Trump's new forever war, whatever it is. There's always just enough defections. Keith, what do you make of that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel 2 things about it because one, I know that we don't want this war to happen, but I also feel like we want Democrats to be in control of the House, and these are Democrats who are also in swing districts. So they make these votes to look independent of the party, and so I get that, but at the same time, this is all very choreographed too. So Hakeem Jeffries is okay with this. So I feel a little bit confused by it, confused about how I feel about it, because I understand wanting to control the House in November, but at what cost?
Yeah. Look, let's establish a number of things. Number one, the fact that they would have lost 216 to 215 if all the Democrats voted the right way is everything. So this rotating villain theory is not something Jordan came up with a minute ago. It's been around for decades, okay? And there is dozens of examples of it, of just enough Democrats flipping over to the Republican side for the Republicans to win nearly every time. And they usually, the reason it's called rotating villains is because they'll rotate them out so it's not one guy that constantly stands out. Now, Sinema and Manchin wound up violating that a little bit. They just became the villains during the Biden administration. But even so, it was rotating because before it wasn't them, it was others, right? It used to be Joe Lieberman who would vote for wars, and Ben Nelson from Nebraska, and I can give you the whole decade-long history of rotating villains. So that then leads back to the guy that Ro Khanna mentioned in that tweet, Josh Gottheimer, who is very, very, very pro-Israel, wants to push us into every war Israel wants, endless funding, unconditional for Israel, etc. Same with Moskowitz, right? So those two, in this case, were totally kind of on the war, seemed at best non-committal, right? They seemed to be arguing in favor of the war. But then all of a sudden, as soon as they got past the threshold, they turn around and go, oh yeah, we vote against. Yeah, sure, If it required Gottheimer's or Moskowitz's vote, there is 0% chance they wouldn't have voted for this war, okay? So, but honestly, guys, it isn't just about Moskowitz or Gottheimer. They're just spectacular examples of it because they're so overwhelmingly pro-Israel, right? But I bet you they could have found at least 50% of the Democratic Party. My real guess is at least 80% of the Democratic Party that would have rotated through. Okay, and so why do I say that? Because at least 80% of the party, Democratic Party, takes money from AIPAC. Now 99% of the Republican Party takes it, but these are the choices you have. So except I think that there's a better option in a second. But one last thing about the guys who voted in this case with the Republicans. Our press tells us that Jared Golden and Henry Cuellar are not affected by $3.3 and $3.4 million in campaign donations, that was their genuine principled stand on this. They thought, you know what, I think the president should have the power to declare war. I think the Constitution is wrong. That's what Golden and Cuellar genuinely think. That's why I hate the national media. I despise them. Because it's one thing for the guy to commit a bank robbery, right? It's another thing for the guy who witnessed it to go, no, he didn't do it, the other guy did. What are you gonna put that guy in prison for his whole life when he was innocent, and you're gonna let the guilty guy go? And that's what our national media does all the time. The reason they voted that way is not complicated. They got legally bribed by Israel to vote in favor of a war that Israel wants. And 94% of our Congress takes money from the Israeli lobby. So it doesn't matter, We were always going to go to war. They're bought completely, well, not completely, 94% by Israel. That's a stone cold fact, and the national media doesn't cover that news, it covers up that news. You will not see that these guys were bought by AIPAC, and that's why they voted this way in a single mainstream media article. Okay, so lastly, is there anything you can do about it? Hell yeah, there is. To Keith's dilemma, right? You look, the Republicans are worse, and that's why I voted against Trump 3 times, even though I'm not a big fan of the 3 people he ran against, right? So that's why God created primaries. Okay, fine, it wasn't God, okay? But so primaries are everything. That's another reason why national media is like, oh, primaries aren't important. They waste money. They waste important donor money, okay? Ignore the primaries. Just go to the general election where you'll have no choice. You'll have pro-Israel A, pro-Israel guy B, right? In the primaries, go vote the sons of bitches out. You don't have to cross the aisle. You don't have to get, oh yeah, lesser of 2 evils. Oh, you better not vote for a Republican. Good news. You can go to a Democratic primary and vote out almost all the incumbents. Unless their name is Ro Khanna or Jamie Raskin or someone you know for sure is a great guy. You're absolutely positive and you can show it. I got bad news for you. Your incumbent sucks. They sold you out, not just to Israel, to big pharma, to the military-industrial complex. Vote out all the bums on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. Go to the primaries. We have a pledge on OperationConsequences.com. We'll put the link down below. But you could make an internal pledge. You could do whatever you want. Just make sure you go to the primaries. And by the way, to some degree, it has already started. The Dan Crenshaw upset loss had a lot of different factors to it, and MAGA is against him for other reasons as well. But he was also the guy in the House that was most associated with war, and he got crushed in the primary. So the Republicans are gonna have someone else there. By the way, the next guy also bribed by AIPAC. Okay, but we got rid of one of the biggest warmongers in a Republican primary without the Republicans having to ever vote for a Democrat, and vice versa. Don't worry, Democrats. You don't have to vote for a Republican. In fact, you'll have a stronger, cleaner candidate against the Republicans with a much better chance of winning if you vote for guys in the primaries that don't take AIPAC money or any Israeli lobby money, but also any corporate PAC money, because the corporations buy our politicians even more.
Every time I hear Cuellar's name, I'm reminded of how Democrats swooped in to protect him in those primaries. I don't want to undercut Cenk's argument on the importance of primaries, but I also don't want you to think it's going to be an easy fight, because 2 times Jessica Cisneros, a Justice Democrat, great progressive, challenged Cuellar, and both times she narrowly lost. But also both times top House Democrats went to that district to support him, knowing that despite his terrible voting record. I mean, the first Trump term, the first 2 years of the Trump term, Cuellar voted with Trump 70% of the time. If you really want us to think that Trump is the greatest threat to American democracy, and you've got someone in your caucus voting with him 70% of the time, why are Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, and Steny Hoyer and James Clyburn flying to that district to fundraise and whip the vote for him when you've got a better candidate challenging him? Because they just want to protect their own. It's like a cartel, I'm sorry. And I think Cenk's description, while some may shudder at the term bribe, we know he's okay with bribes because he literally took them from Azerbaijan and Mexico, and Trump had to pardon him last December. The guy's okay with it, doesn't matter. They're just doing it the legal way. It's an affront to our system, it's an affront to the law.
Yep. All right, we got to take a break, guys. And when we come back, could there be consequences for Kristi Noem and delivered by the Republicans? Maybe. We'll find out. Back on TYT. So let's go to Twitch first now. California Bud says, send Barron to Iran. Is he past 18? I mean, he could sign up.
He's a Kai Trump, send her.
No, wait a minute. Like, I'm serious about it. If you think it's such a great idea, if he's gonna do ground troops, you better be sending in Barron. And I don't wanna hear anything about bone spurs. Okay, Dave Smith 311 gifted 2 subs on Twitch. We appreciate you, brother. You're always doing that. We notice it, so thank you, brother. Mad Matty Dragon said Massey and Khanna should run together in 28. The ultimate populist bipartisan ticket. They obviously work well together. Obviously, there's going to be some significant discussions as to whether it should be Massey Khanna or Khanna Massey. Okay, so a little bit of issue there, but it is an intriguing idea. Brooke Marks makes an excellent point.
Oh, no.
Resubbing to bid adieu to Kate the Goat. So Kate's our senior producer here at TYT, and this is her last day. So we love you, Kate. Thanks for all that you've done. You've been amazing, and it's been a wonderful 6 years together. So it was a blast, and thank you for all of it. Indeed. And we got a new producer coming in a week from now, and he'll be great too. All right. So now let's go to members on YouTube. The Raging Atheist says, the way things are going, we may need Operation Joy twice a week. Things feel bleak. Yeah, I hear you on that. That is certainly true. User Error 5 says, me being excited to hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene on TYT was not on my bingo card.
Be nice to me.
Okay, but apparently here we are. Robot Engineer makes a great point. Who cares about all of this? The Dow hit 50,000, the Dow, which by the way is now down to 47,000 and dropping. And by the way, I don't know if it's a Robot Engineer, but that's what I say every time. Mark Francis speaks for America. I feel Congress is pathetic. Yeah, indeed. Original Prop says, I'm actually concerned about another Great Depression. We all are, brother. Night of Mirage Odyssey says, Jank, show Matt Schlapp, some Catholic nuns in their burqas. Ask him if they need to switch to bodycon dresses. Funny how oppression only applies to one religion's modesty or gets blissed by the INF. Iran is also using 3D decoy jets to waste US-Israel missiles. I was wondering about that. Okay, so that last part's really interesting. I'll look more into it and get back to you guys on another show about it, about whether Iran's using decoys or not. But he's referring to Matt Schlapp in a debate we had on Piers Morgan. I said, mentioned the 165 girls that were killed in an elementary school in Iran, and Matt Schlapp said they were going to wear burqas anyway. And his point is, well, the nuns wear something very similar. Imagine if they murdered 165 nuns. And he said, yeah, but they were already covered up, so what's the big deal? And yes, that is exactly the same thing. We'll be back.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Jordan Uhl, and Keith Edwards with you guys. All right, Jordan's got more stories.
It's looking more and more likely that the US was responsible for striking an Iranian girls' school last week. And now, even the most adamant Trump supporters are demanding answers. This from Laura Ingraham. If true, this is horrific news, and the US military will have to address this publicly. Proximity of military compound obviously a factor, but our weapons also have pinpoint accuracy. She's linking the Wall Street Journal report on that there. Jank, MAGA is starting to turn on Trump again, it seems. What are your 2 cents here?
Yeah, so I think that there's 2 reasons why Laura Ingraham had this tweet. One is there is a genuine pro-life movement now saying, I'm pretty sure we were in favor of keeping kids alive. And we had asked for that a long time ago, and I'm a little shocked that it's arrived. So it's not just because of that there's morality around this issue, and we're going to talk about the Israelification of our military and how to avoid it, but there's a second reason too. And the second reason is political, and it's actually pretty smart by Laura Ingraham. So I'll explain that in a minute.
Let's get into the details. On February 28th, the strike on an elementary school is the deadliest known episode of civilian casualties since the war began a week ago. While the total death toll has yet to be confirmed, Iranian health officials and state media say it has killed at least 175 people, many of them children. Since the attack, US and Israeli officials have neither confirmed nor denied responsibility. And we touched briefly on reporting that toyed with the idea that the US being responsible yesterday. But according to an exclusive Reuters report, US military investigators believe it is likely the US forces were responsible for an apparent strike on an Iranian girls' school that killed scores of children on Saturday, but have not yet reached a final conclusion or completed their investigation, 2 US officials told Reuters. The officials did not rule out the possibility of new evidence emerging to rule out the US. CNN also took a look at satellite imagery of the area, and again, it suggests the US was responsible.
Even if it was an Iranian missile,
It seems more and more likely that the US was responsible. A new satellite image shows an Iranian Revolutionary Guards base and an elementary school in southern Iran. Here you see craters in several of the buildings, including the school. They were hit in their exact centers, suggesting precision strikes, experts say. A wall separates the school and the base. Satellite images from December show dozens of people in what appears to be a handball court at the school. Reuters now reports that US military investigators believe US forces were responsible, though they haven't yet reached a final conclusion.
It paints a picture of multiple simultaneous or near simultaneous strikes. And it looks like these were delivered with explosive munitions, probably air delivered. I think the most likely scenario in this case is that it's a US or Israeli airstrike gone awry. It's probably a targeting failure somewhere in the targeting cycle, an intelligence failure.
The Israeli military say they weren't operating in the area.
To date, we've hit over 2,000 targets.
American military officials say they carried out extensive strikes in this area. They've released this map, which shows strikes in southern Iran. The base and the school in Minab are located here.
Many claim the school was located on an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps base. However, an analysis by Al Jazeera's Digital Investigations Unit of satellite imagery compiled over more than a decade, as well as recent video clips, published news reports, and statements from official Iranian sources, has revealed that the school has been clearly separate from an adjacent military site for at least 10 years. If the US role were to be confirmed, the strike would rank among the worst cases of civilian casualties in decades of US conflicts in the Middle East. Deliberately attacking a school or hospital or any other civilian structure would likely be a war crime under international and humanitarian law. Reuters stated it's unclear how much longer the investigation would last and what other evidence investigators are looking for. CNN stated there's currently an internet blackout in Iran, making it difficult to examine the weaponry fragments left behind. According to Al Jazeera, 4 schools have been hit in Iran since the war started, with the 4th being another elementary school in Tehran today. The circumstances and number of casualties on the other 3 strikes remain unclear. There's more, but for the sake of time, Keith, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of this?
Well, this is what happens when you bring in a Fox News host to run these operations who reportedly has an issue with alcohol. We don't know whether or not that's still going on. And I want to say that I wish MAGA would turn on Trump over this, but we know that MAGA will eat whatever slop they're given by Donald Trump, unfortunately. 83% of Republicans support this war, even though MAGA wanted no new wars. Donald Trump said he was going to release the Epstein files. He's not doing that. Donald Trump said he wasn't going to ever put us into any sort of conflict that we didn't need to be in, and MAGA is 100% behind it. So I don't see how Donald Trump loses support from his base over this. And when it comes to this awful incident with school children, I just want to say that I don't know if we can even trust the investigators who are going to be tasked to look into this, because I don't trust anything coming out of the government right now. And maybe I never should have, but certainly I don't now when Donald Trump is meddling in every single investigation to make himself look as good as possible. We don't even know if the jobs reports are accurate anymore. So are we going to trust them to investigate whether or not they created one of the mass casualties, one of the worst in a generation?
Yeah, well, I'm surprised that they already took some responsibility. I didn't expect that at all. So maybe it was in an effort to say, remember, it wasn't Israel. You should blame America. So I don't know, but I assume they didn't falsely take responsibility, to be fair. But okay, now let's break it down a little bit. So the reason why I mentioned that is obviously America and Israel are both doing bombings and is a joint operation. And I often talk about the Israelification of our foreign policy and our military. And who hits schools and hospitals? The Israelis, nonstop. They hit almost every hospital, almost every school in Gaza. So remember when they had that first hit on a hospital and we weren't sure if it was the Israelis or an errant missile, and they went ballistic over, you're all anti-Semites, how could you say the Israelis would have hit a hospital? And then they hit every hospital in Gaza. And they're notorious for double taps. And so here, they say there's a double tap. The reporting on it is not as clear to me, right? But like, if it's a double tap 2 on top, that's why part of it is some people on the right. Laura Ingraham is not Laura Ingraham. That's a hilarious thing to say. She is basically speaking for her audience because she's getting pressure from her audience, right? And she says something that's a little bit different on Fox News, a little bit different on X. And on X, there's a lot of people, and this goes to the point that Keith brought up about MAGA and stuff. No, there are different bubbles. Like on television, Trump supporters are still 100% with Trump because Fox News is like, Trump is a demigod, he's done nothing wrong. Remember, he told you he was gonna attack all these countries? They're like, did he? Yeah, I guess he did, yeah, I love it, right? So, but online, with under 55-year-olds, it's a totally different situation. So if on X, for example, Laura Ingraham said, oh yeah, it's great, we should do double taps and murder all these kids, people would be like, no, even the right-wingers online on X would be like, at least some portion of them would be like, no, we shouldn't do that, right? That's crazy. So there's that. But the second thing that I think is more important politically is that she's basically screaming, like in the movie, get out, get out. She's taking pictures, like take pictures, have the flash go off so he wakes up and gets out. Because she's basically saying, don't keep going. If you put in the ground troops, you won't just destroy yourself, you'll destroy the Republican Party. Because even the guys on TV, as zombies as they are watching Fox News, if he puts ground troops in, that base is going to crumble. And already he's lost almost all the independents. So they're in a world of hurt here politically. And then lastly, we usually have very precise intelligence. I mean, look at how clear we were on the other 3 buildings and this building, right? We knew exactly where to hit them. Remember, we killed the top 49 Iranian leaders because we had excellent intelligence. So this is the one time we had bad intelligence? Maybe, I'm hoping yes. I'm hoping it was a mistake because if they did this on purpose, that's as un-American as it gets.
Yeah, well, you wanna do the AI angle? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the strike on the school could have been a mistake or a failure in the targeting cycle. What's powering our targeting system? AI. Over the first 24 hours of this war, the US struck 1,000 targets with the help of AI. The military's Maven Smart system, which is built by data mining company Palantir, is generating insights from an astonishing amount of classified data from satellites, surveillance, and other intelligence, helping provide real-time targeting and target prioritization to military operations in Iran, according to 3 people familiar with the system. Maven is also powered by Anthropic's AI tool Claude, which was banned by the Pentagon last week over the terms of its use in war. As planning for a potential strike in Iran was underway, Maven, powered by Claude, suggested hundreds of targets, issued precise location coordinates, and prioritized those targets according to importance, said 2 of the people. According to the people the WAPO spoke to, Claude has been used in countering terror plots and in the raid that captured Maduro. But this is the first time it has been used in major war operations, and not looking good for Claude. Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the thing that hallucinates and can't give me answers about, I don't know, the weather, maybe shouldn't be used to target weapons. Is that a hot take?
Yeah, no, look, it's every AI, and it's real, and it's gonna cost us a lot of jobs and all that stuff. But the other day we asked AI to find different portions of videos that, and out of our library of videos, and you'd think like that's like pretty simple job for AI. They're like, bruv, I can't do it. And I'm like, oh no, don't use it for targeting. Please don't use it for targeting. I mean, remember guys, again, sorry, but it's true. So Israel uses AI in a program they have that's called Where's Daddy? And so they pick people based on different algorithms. Like, oh, there was a guy we know who was Hamas. He has a telephone number in his cell phone that's this telephone number. And then that person is connected to someone else at a work or whatever different intelligence the AI uses. So that guy, like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon later, is then considered a terrorist. And then why is it called Where's Daddy? They wait for that guy to go home so they kill his whole family with him. So that's what they use AI for in Gaza. So if they've started using that kind of AI in Iran, this is going to turn into an even bigger nightmare.
Yeah, it's reckless. It sanitizes the act of killing. It helps people distance themselves from the actual horrors of war. Many critics have just derided these systems, said they're inefficient, they're ineffective, they're just inflated. What their capabilities are inflated as just marketing so they can continue to bring in VC cash. You're seeing those outputs fail and also lead to the loss of life now. Many people have had experiences trying to use these systems to sometimes a humorous or a frustrating degree, whether it gives you the wrong information or, like Keith said, hallucinates. In some cases, it's just straight plagiarism. They scrape the internet and regurgitate it in a paraphrased way back to you. But here, they're using it, it's giving them incorrect information, purportedly, and now people are dead as a result. I don't feel comfortable with the rapid rate with which we are developing and relying on these systems.
Yep. All right, guys. So Keith and Jordan are going to stick around. We're going to do an old school bonus episode for the members. So good time to become a member. Hit the join button below if you're on YouTube. Everybody else on the dozens of platforms we're on, tyt.com/join. And by the way, if you get annual membership, you get a couple months off. So tyt.com/join. The Christy Gnome story that I was promising you guys, we ran out of time. Good news, we'll do it in the bonus episode. And then we're gonna have a fun discussion for the members. Do Americans hate each other more than other countries hate one another? Okay, so it's a trippy article. It turns out the answer is yes. It's kind of disastrous, but we'll talk about that when we do the bonus episode for the members in a minute. So all the members, stay right here. We'll be right back. Everybody else, we love you. We'll see you on Monday.
They called me daddy.